Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for coming. Quite an exciting day for a lot of us because this is an agenda an area of work that a lot of us have put a lot of time in over the years, and it feels like maybe there's hope that we can turn this conversation around and away from stigma, as Claire said. So I was supposed to speak until 10:30, so I talk fast, so we'll see what we can do. Just a bit of introduction to me. I'm a cognitive behaviour therapist. I currently work in Sheffield's specialist psychotherapy service, but I've got about 9.5 years working in IAPT services in Rochdale and in Sheffield. Before then, I'm also chair of the BABCP's Equality and Culture Special Interest Group, and I'd really like to take this opportunity to thank the BABCP. I don't think without their help we would have been able to do this work because it's so under-resourced, and the fact that they've got behind this work, and one of the smaller organisations in comparison to like the British Psychology Society, for example. So really appreciate their support. And Peter's here from the BABCP today. If you've got any questions about the organisation, then please ask Peter. And there's some leaflets and magazines at the front desk as well. And do visit the website. There's a section on there for the public as well as therapists. So the other thing, I guess, I put on here is I'm the treasurer of the Borough of Rochdale Multi-Faith Partnerships. A lot of my work around Rochdale is around community cohesion work and interfaith work, and I guess I'll bring some of that learning into my role with the BABCP and hopefully with this guide as well, because we need to move away from trying to think about creating separate organisations and services. It's more about integrating into the communities. So for me, I guess it's more about, we talk about equality. Talking about equality enough isn't going to be enough. We need to be thinking about equity. If we really want to get on top of this, I think at the moment that's where we need to be heading in terms of equity. So the reason it's important is because race is a protected characteristic under the Equality Act, and it's just such a shame that I have to cite this. That we just can't get it right, that have to go to the Equality Act to demonstrate that actually we have a duty of care and responsibility to diverse communities. And we're not just talking, I focus on BME communities because it has largely been ignored and neglected, but we have a duty of care to all communities. As public sector organisations, we do again have a duty of care, and we just need to understand that as a basic. So hopefully you'll enjoy today. Please speak to each other. I don't have all the answers, nobody here has all the answers, but it's hopefully an opportunity for us to get together, learn from each other, and like Claire said, we need to be a bit more strategic about this and how do we progress the conversation along. So I'm just going to start with talking about psychological safety, and this presentation isn't mine, it belongs to my mentor Linda Wilkinson, who's the Director of Psychological Services in the trust that I work for. So this won't be sent out, but again, thinking about having the confidence to even put ourselves forward to write the guidance. I don't think I would have been able to do it if it wasn't for the support that I received through mentoring. And the reason I was able to receive mentoring is because my team leader at the time supported me to attend mentoring, and that's something we need to think about because a lot of our therapists are not being supported to receive mentoring. And Jodie's here at the back. She's currently Sheffield's IAPT service manager, so she's been very supportive of this work. And when I think about inclusive leaders, I do think of Jodie as an example. So what is psychological safety? It's not a belief that we'll be punished or humiliated for speaking about our ideas or concerns or mistakes. It's about feeling accepted and being respected, and we have to think about whether in IAPT services or generally mental health service, do we have this or not? And thinking about the impact that it has, it creates change, it makes work more meaningful for people, there's clarity in roles and plans, and it just raises the bar for people. And when we feel psychologically safe, we feel able to speak up with relevant ideas, any concern. We trust and respect each other enough to be open and honest and candid. And safety takes up interpersonal risks without fear of being punished or embarrassed or shut down. I just don't think it's nice when you put an idea forward that you think is great and then you either don't get a response or that idea is shut down. I think it's better to be able to work through those ideas. So And I guess it comes from a place of, safety, isn't it? We want to protect ourselves. We don't want to come across as being ignorant, negative, disruptive, racist, etc. So it makes us feel vulnerable. So we need to protect ourselves by maybe not asking important questions, not offering ideas for change, not being involved in conversations. A lot of the work that we've been doing with the BABCP's Equality and Culture Special Interest Group, when I come to think of it, has been around this. If we're trying to create psychological safety in teams, even though we've never really used that term with them, it's actually making them feel confident enough to ask questions with the intention of helping each other or the communities that they're working in. And you're not always going to get it right. I'm quite anxious in my role with the BABCP sometimes, because I think I put pressure on myself to know everything about every sort of community, and it's just not realistic to expect that of myself. So when we don't build that psychological safety in organisations, frustration can build, because if I've got an idea and I can see a fix or an idea and I can't share it with you, who's in a better position to implement it, actually I could feel stuck with that idea or frustrated. If you can see where maybe people are being disadvantaged and you've got solutions and you don't feel like those ideas can be taken anywhere to be validated, that's quite a difficult place to sort of be, and you're left holding ideas. And we see this a lot with a lot of our BAME members. So you kind of get to like a tipping point. And then this can actually create divisions in your organisations. You might see pockets of people who might align to what you're thinking and feeling, and then you get the other pockets who might not even be aware of what's happening, so there's a disconnect here. So the fears of work that we have are like patient harm, making the wrong clinical decisions, times and resource limited, so want to do things well to a certain standard, but being pressurised. And we know IAPT is a pressurised, I can't say an organisation if you think of it collectively, and the impact of insufficient staffing. And also certain IAPT services, for example, do struggle to recruit, especially at step 2. Thinking about the impact of work pressures on your health, well-being, the impact on like your wider family network. It's not you. I say to members when they're struggling and they want to leave the profession, is that actually, this work isn't your life. You have a life outside of work. And I sound a little bit hypocritical here, but that's the truth. We don't sign up to ruin our health, actually. We sign up to do a particular role, and if you're not supported to do that, we can become unwell. Okay, so when an organisation becomes psychologically unsafe, there's the division we have. It disrupts the behaviour in the team, low morale, poor relationship, and you have, this is where you probably have like a higher staff turnover maybe and staff sickness. So feeling secure in your work environment is really, really important. So being able to come out of our comfort zone and learn from each other and report mistakes, and just, I think sometimes people core beliefs might be being activated, and it's nothing personal. We're not going to always get it right. So it's not about being nice or lowering your performance standards, or with regards to any particular type. We've had like the Staffordshire hospital report. There's loads of other things that have happened, but what we're learning from those, the sort of conversations, some of the things I hear, I think actually we're not learning as much as maybe we need to, in terms of previous reports. You can look up these. To create psychological safety, we need to be accessible as a human being, as leaders, as colleagues, be present in the room and be open and transparent and not shut down conversations, and sharing responsibility, and actually just working together to have higher sort of aspirations and standards, not just for yourselves, but your communities that you're serving in. So just trying to think of things maybe a little bit different. I know IAPT's pressurised with data, but even David Clark will say that isn't what IAPT was about. The data's there as a guidance, actually. The people come first. And if you can be a bit more inclusive, people come first, you'll get your outcome measures. So just a quick overview of the launch. We launched it in London in April last year, and by then we didn't have the guide, so you've got them in your packs. You're very lucky. I think you're the only ones in the country that's going to receive a copy of this in print. It's the short guide, because the large guide's on the BABCP website, and it's just going to, is it on the It's on the homepage, so if you go on the website, it is on the homepage at the moment. So we're hoping that it's going to be a working document that you can use in your organisation, not just for BME people, I hope, but for other underrepresented groups. So in terms of the process of developing this guide, we turned it over in about 3 months. So we're still at work, but it was quite intense, but I think it needed to be done. We consulted 50 service users from different Black, Asian, minority, ethnic backgrounds. I was involved in, I think, 4 feedback sessions, a couple in Sheffield, Rochdale, and I did an online one. And we couldn't get David here, he had other commitments today. We did invite David. And the reason it was commissioned, and I think Ursula's coming in about 11 o'clock, so she'll speak more, is that BME people are less likely to use IAPT services, they're less likely to complete treatment, they're less likely to reliably improve, less likely to achieve full recovery in IAPT. So if you're familiar, I think there's people here from the community, so just to explain, when you enter an IAPT service, you have to do certain measures, and those are an indicator of, I guess, how depressed or anxious you are and the kind of treatment you might perhaps receive, and then recovery measures based on completing those measures maybe every session. And the data that we last had showed that Muslim communities are less likely to have improve in terms of recovery, in terms of different faith groups. And even though the initial IAPT site suggested that BME sort of service user outcomes were the same, so I don't really know what happened from the Doncaster and Newham sites and the data from there, what's changed drastically that actually these communities are not receiving that kind of care. So in terms of the guidance, we tried to take more of a systems approach, and I don't even think we mentioned, we had a conversation, Andrew Beck was the project lead, do we mention the word stigma? And I said, should we mention it once? Like, you know, that's what you do, don't you? Think about BME mental health, you think stigma, and I don't think we did. We didn't use the word. We thought it was better not to use the word and move away from that. So the guide is a bit more system approach from service leads, managers, commissioners, supervisors. So a lot of our therapists, then they're not receiving the supervision that they require to work with these communities, or feeling that they're not receiving the supervision. Therapists themselves, third sector partners. Any here today? No, okay, sorry. Community organisations, and like the BME community in general. So when I do my outreach work in the community, I talk about, whatever I talk about with the professionals, I talk about in the community. We had the first draft, we took it into the community, we received the feedback, we brought it back, we worked it up again, when we took it back again into the community and asked service users for their feedback. And Abdi, you were part of that, so I don't know if when you're speaking later on, then you can maybe mention about maybe a bit around that as well, how your experience was. So this is the guide, so can't reach. Andrew Beck was a project lead, myself, Michelle, she did some stuff with asylum seekers, refugees and interpreters, and then we had Maja who did the Polish group ones, but we also consulted with lots of community organisations, GPs, conversation with people in the community, wider than service users, so we tried to get as much feedback as we possibly could. So hopefully it's about improving access, improving outcomes, improving staff knowledge, staffing itself, thinking about representation. We're not saying employ Black, Asian, minority, ethnic therapists to only work with those communities, because actually no, we need to be working with, we should be confident enough to work with any community. That's like me saying I can't work with white British people. We wouldn't accept that. So it's thinking about how do we integrate a bit more in our organisations, how do we just get to know each other, put the measures and the treatment to the side, let's get to know our local communities. There's lots of, I know for example in Rochester there's lots of community events going on in Rochester, and we do we've got the Holocaust Memorial event coming up a week on next Thursday or the Thursday after. So just I know it comes out of your own time, but it's really worth it actually, and you find a lot of allies in the community who will help take this message forward as well. So hopefully what we want is, at the back of the guide there is a toolkit, but in the afternoon we'll talk a little bit more about the toolkit. And this improving staff knowledge, so talking about resource and reference, so if you've got any gaps in resources, it's being able to identify what those are and discussing them with the commissioners, rather than kind of expecting therapists to continue working without the relevant resources and expecting the same outcomes. It's really making people unwell and leave the profession, and I think we need to be thinking about people's well-being. So in terms of the cycle of improving access, is mapping your communities, map who's already using your services, okay, and then thinking about where are the gaps and then putting strategies in place, so thinking about the shortfalls, and then working with local partner organisations and using the knowledge of your hopefully diverse staff to think about how can you bridge that gap, and then just start changing the way we work. And the cycle of improving outcomes is like measure and assess with ethnicity in mind. Please collect your data. Data is really important in terms of your demographics. I think a lot of people don't. When we do teaching under the IAPT services, I'll say, let's have a look at your data. Maybe there's some learning in here for us. And there's massive gaps in their data, so you can't really guide them properly because I don't know how well their data is being collected. Get used to asking people about their backgrounds, so whether it's ethnicity or sexuality, because I think when we're not doing that, we're not bringing that into the room, and that's part of their identity that's being missed out of their treatments, which is quite important for them. Like Maksud said, understand the impact of racism and discrimination, and I think there's a little abstract of an article that Andrew Beck wrote about racism, but those articles are available online, and there's a link to them here as well.